Hiya! Hi ladies and baddies, hi besties. Welcome one and all to a new video. I recently came back from Oxford, and in Oxford there's a bookstore that sells books for £5 or less. So there isn't a single book in there that costs more than £5. So I got 5 books. It's only right, I think. These are the books that I'm planning to read this spring. So I thought I'd talk about that with you. First book I got is a book by Andrei Kurkov. It's called Death in the Penguin. Honestly, this book is not a book that I've necessarily heard about, but I was intrigued by the title and by the blurb, which was very interesting to me because it's like, wow, this is really what it used to be like before book talk. Like, I didn't go to a bookstore in search of a specific book. I really just went to see what was there and what called to me. And this, Death in the Penguin, called to me. So this is about an aspiring writer, which real, but he currently makes a living composing like obituaries, I think, for a newspaper. I don't know how obituaries actually work. I would assume you write an obituary once someone dies, but according to the blurb, he's just writing for living people. Okay, let me read this to you. He longs to see his work published, yet the subjects of his obituaries continue to cling to life. But when he opens the newspaper to find his work in print for the first time, his pride swiftly turns to terror. He and Misha have been drawn into a trap from which there appears to be no escape. Misha is his pet penguin, so Death in the Penguin. But yeah, it just seemed like it would be a very interesting read. It seemed like it'd be a bit funny, but also still like suspenseful. So I'm looking forward to this. Next book is a collection of short stories by George Saunders. I believe this is the second collection of short stories, and I'm really excited to read this because I got into a bit of a reading rut recently. In January, I was like striding through my reading goals, but then I just like got into a slump and I don't know why. So what helped me get out of it was reading Dostoevsky's White Nights because it's such a short read and it's just so gripping. That kind of got me more into short stories, and George Saunders came greatly recommended to me, specifically Pastoralia. Apparently that's his best story. I read this 10th of December and I think his writing is very witty, and it doesn't seem that he has a specific writing style so much as he tends to embody the writing of the characters which he's portraying, if that makes sense. I don't know. So I'm excited to read Pastoralia because I enjoyed this book. Yay! Actually, I got this book along with this book in London. I think I got it from the London Review Bookshop. But yes, I got Virginia Woolf's Monday or Tuesday. This is another collection of short stories. I think I'm just really loving short stories for spring. But yes, I love Virginia Woolf. The first book I read of hers was, I think, A Room of One's Own. And I was struck by how brazen her language was. Because like, this is a woman born in the 1800s. And she's talking about feminism and capitalism and all the things that we're talking about now. And I'm like, wow, you are really ahead of your time. So then I read Mrs. Dalloway, which I was just struck by her use of language and the way that she creates female characters that feel like people. I really enjoyed that. Because of my affinity for her, when I saw this collection of short stories, I was intrigued. I already started reading this on the train back home, and I'm so in love. I'm so happy I bought this. One of the stories is called A Society, and it basically gets to the core of like, we live in a society. It's about this group of friends. I think they're all gals, all women. They're all women. So basically one of them, her dad, died and left everything to her in his will under the condition that she reads all the books in the British Library, I believe. And so she's like going about that task only to discover, in much pain and disappointment, that books apparently suck. And I felt like that was such an interesting premise to come from a writer, because I was like, what do you mean? They used that as a premise to examine the world and society, specifically under the umbrella of how society was run by men, and the only responsibility of the woman was to take care of the family, to create the family. And so now they're kind of pondering over whether they would like to bring children into this world if they themselves don't even know what is in the world. Basically, they're challenging themselves to acquire as much knowledge about the world in order to make like an informed decision about whether or not they'll have children. And that hits me right where I live. I was like, wow, that is literally something I thought about on a daily basis. Well, not daily basis, but I do be thinking about that sometimes. It's quite a satirical story, I will say that. I found myself giggling on the train and I was like, this is lovely. It's a critique that's folded in the satire in such a masterful way. If you didn't know Virginia Woolf or her beliefs, you might actually think she was being serious. And I feel like that's the best kind of satire. Next book, The Last Man by Mary Shelley. I don't know why I thought that Mary Shelley only wrote Frankenstein. I thought that was her only novel, but apparently not, because this is another novel that she wrote. I read Frankenstein like last 2 years, loved it. Was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I think I mentioned on this channel earlier how like I was scared to read Frankenstein because of the movie iterations I'd seen of it. But yeah, loved Frankenstein. So when I saw this, I was like, you know what? This was also $3.99, by the way. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, I have to get it because listen to the blurb. The Last Man is a powerful post-apocalyptic tale and precursor to the much later science fiction novels of H.G. Wells, George Orwell, overshadowed by the titanic success of Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's neglected masterpiece tells of a future laid waste by plague. And it basically tells the story of this one man, the last man, who's forced to watch the decay of humanity and of society and civilization because he's immune to the plague that is currently plaguing mankind. He's immune to the plague that has struck mankind. So the core of it is an examination of who humans are. Doesn't that sound so intriguing? I love the dissection of society in any form, in books and movies, because I think about that daily. Like, who are we as people intrinsically, and who are we when no one is watching? Who are we when our humanity is ripped off us? And I think this would be a very interesting examination of that premise. So yes, I'm excited for that read as well. This is quite a lengthy read, I will say, because the text is also quite small. But I think it's so interesting a premise that like I will breeze through it. Hopefully. But yes, spring reads. Why are these all so dark? Because the next book is Ernest Hemingway's Death in the Afternoon. I read another book by Ernest Hemingway. I don't know which one. I can't quite see it now. I feel like Hemingway has a tender way with words, and he articulates himself in such a way that he could be talking about the most mundane subject but still have you gripped. Because why did I pick up a book about bullfighting? I picked it up because it's Ernest Hemingway. Because I read, what was it I read? I read another one of his books, and the way that he described nature made it feel very supple and almost like tactile. And I really admired that because I feel like that is just such a craft, and I find that immensely fascinating. So I'm trying to read as many of his books as I can, because something that has been really depressing me is the thought of like, there are more books in the world than I can read. There are gonna be so many authors that I never even hear of just because of how vast the pool of writers is. And that's just really depressing because I want to be an author eventually. And so I'm trying to make it my life's mission to discover as many books and as many authors as possible. But yes, in that vein, please comment down below what books you're looking forward to reading this spring so that we can discover some more authors and books together. Thank you so much for watching. I'm currently working on a vlog, a silly little vlog, documenting my travels. So if you would like to watch that as well, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! Bye! That was my little haul. I hope you enjoyed it.